I helped her move into her apartment. Then, she said, stay long enough to see it hold. The cardboard box in my hands weighed maybe 40 pounds, but the silence in the hallway felt heavier. I stood outside apartment 4B with the box balanced against one hip, yellow light buzzing over my shoulder, and the old radiator coughing inside the wall. The woman on the other side of the threshold had one hand on the door and the other wrapped around a crumpled lease notice. Behind her, the loft was stacked with moving boxes, pelican cases, C-stands, cable trunks, and one massive piece of steel equipment sitting too close to the center of the room. Then the floor groaned under her boots. Not a normal old building creak. Not the kind of complaint you ignore because the landlord painted over 100 years of problems and called it renovated character. This was a slow, wooden protest from beneath the hardwood, the sound of weight gathering where it had no right to gather. I tightened my grip on the box. "Where do you want this?" I asked. The woman blinked like she'd forgotten I was still holding it. "Anywhere in the living room is fine." Her name was Amelia Bennett. She had introduced herself in the lobby 3 days earlier while carrying a tripod case, 2 grocery bags, and a roll of black seamless paper under one arm. She was a product videographer, according to the business card tucked into the corner of her mailbox. Capable, focused, and currently standing in a doorway at 10 on a Tuesday night with her sleeves pushed up, her hair pinned badly on one side, and the kind of stillness people use when one more problem will make them drop everything. I stepped inside and set the box down near a stack of lighting stands. The floor dipped under my work boot. There it was again, a shift, small but real. I had spent 14 hours that day directing a 50-ton crane on the East Side Hotel project, moving steel girders through a space where 6 inches could make the difference between clean work and a crushed wall. Heavy loads talked if you knew how to listen. Cable sang before it snapped. Steel complained before it shifted. Timber gave warning in the lowest notes first. The loft's old pine floor was warning me. Amelia noticed where my eyes went. "It's bad, isn't it?" she asked. I looked past the boxes to the vintage motion control camera rig sitting on its pallet. The base track was industrial steel, maybe 2,000 pounds before motors, counterweights, rails, and battery units. Its caster wheels pressed 4 narrow points into century-old flooring that had probably been built for furniture, people, and the occasional upright piano, not a concentrated commercial rig. "It's not good," I said. The radiator hummed to life, low and steady, as if the building wanted to add its opinion. Amelia looked down at the notice in her hand. Her thumb had worn a soft crease into the paper. The movers were supposed to place it against the north wall. They said their shift ended. They left it where it was easiest to drop. "Who cleared the equipment for the unit?" The leasing agent cleared a studio setup. She said, "My ex-business partner handled the equipment specs before he walked out. I thought the weight was listed accurately in the delivery sheet." I crouched by the nearest caster and looked at the small manufacturer's plate. This base alone is heavier than most small cars. Her hand moved to the edge of a pelican case, then stopped. "I have a client shoot in 6 weeks. Packaging campaign, 6 product lines, reflective surfaces, color matching, repeat passes. If I can't get this rig online, I lose the contract." Before I could answer, a sharp knock hit the open door. A man in a charcoal overcoat stood in the hallway with a clipboard tucked under one arm. Marcus Vale, building manager. I knew him only by reputation. The tenants downstairs called him the renovation vulture, because whenever a commercial tenant struggled, Marcus found a technicality, pushed them out, and pitched the unit as luxury residential at a higher rent. His eyes moved from Amelia to the camera rig, then to the box I had just carried in. "Ms. Bennett," he said, "I received a complaint about heavy machinery." Amelia straightened. "I just moved in." "And you moved in unauthorized industrial equipment?" Marcus stepped over the threshold without waiting for permission. "Section 4 of your lease prohibits structural endangerment, nuisance machinery, and equipment that exceeds the rated floor load." "It's a camera rig," she said, "for product video. I have written approval for a studio." "A studio is lights and cameras." Marcus tapped his clipboard. "That is a steel press." "It is not a press. It is heavy enough to make my ceiling crack." His smile thinned. 48 hours. Remove the equipment by Thursday morning or I issue a formal lease violation and begin termination proceedings. The radiator kept humming. Amelia looked at the rig, then at the notice, then at the floor. She did not cry. She did not raise her voice. She folded the lease notice once, too neatly, and pressed the crease flat with both thumbs. If I remove it, she said, I lose the shoot. That is not my concern. Marcus turned toward the hall. I set my hand on the box I had carried in, not blocking his path, not giving him a scene to use later. The hazard is the point load, not the equipment itself. He paused. And you are? Nathan Reed, I live in 3B. Then I suggest you worry about your own unit. I am. I said, this rig is above my ceiling. The corner of his mouth twitched. I'm a heavy lift and rigging specialist. I continued. If the load is spread across the primary joists on a freestanding deck, the floor may be compliant. If the joists are damaged, a structural engineer needs to inspect before anyone moves that rig. Either way, pushing her to drag it across unsupported flooring by Thursday is the fastest way to make your problem worse. Marcus looked annoyed for the first time. 48 hours, he said again. Have your solution ready, or have the equipment gone? He left. The metal door at the end of the corridor clicked shut. For a moment, nothing moved in apartment 4B except the radiator steam knocking through old pipes. Amelia lowered the lease notice onto a cardboard box labeled lenses. Her finger stayed on the page. I can't move it, she said quietly. I spent nearly everything securing the space, transporting the rig, and buying the custom track. My old partner drained the shared account before he left. The deposit, the first 2 months, the client insurance rider, the delivery fees. It's all already gone. If Marcus terminates the lease, I lose the equipment storage, the campaign, and the business I started after the partnership collapsed. That answered one question. It left the larger one sitting between us. Why was she carrying all of this alone? No crew, no assistant, no partner. No one helping her read the lease notice at 10 at night except the guy from downstairs who had only meant to carry one box. I took a breath and looked at the rig instead of at her. You don't force a load, I said. You balance the tension. She looked up. What? Old rule from my apprenticeship. Applies to cranes, applies to floors. Usually applies to people too, though people hate being calculated. I pulled a tape measure from my tool belt and set it on the nearest crate. I can evaluate the load path tonight. I can design a temporary freestanding platform if the joists are sound. I can price the materials cleanly and put payment terms in writing. But it has to be your call. Her eyes moved from my tape measure to the floor. What's the catch? No catch? There's always a catch. I live downstairs, I said. If your floor fails, my ceiling becomes part of your studio. That gives me a practical interest before it gives me a personal one. The smallest sound came out of her. Not a laugh exactly, but close enough to be useful. You make ceiling collapse sound very neighborly. I'm told I'm excellent company during structural emergencies. She looked at the rig again. The radiator hummed behind her, steady as a metronome. Write the terms, she said. Then show me the math. I nodded. Good. First rule, don't move the rig until we know what the floor can take. I wasn't planning to... I saw you try to move a steel track by yourself in the hallway. I was negotiating with it. You were losing. This time the sound was definitely a laugh, tired and brief, but real. I opened my phone, pulled up a blank note, and started a material list. Steel plates, oak timbers, rubber isolators, lag screws for the deck assembly, not the floor. No permanent structural alteration, no drilling into the historic pine, no hidden work that Marcus could twist later. Then I added another line. Independent engineer review if any joist damage is found. Amelia read over my shoulder from a respectful distance. You're really worried about your license. I'm worried about lying on paper. I said, a license survives risk. It doesn't survive arrogance. She took that in, then reached for a pen from a mug on the counter. The mug had a hairline crack near the handle and held 3 lens brushes instead of coffee. Put the payment terms on the same page. She said, I won't accept charity. Standard hourly. I said, materials at cost. You help with the build so you know what's under your own equipment. Her chin lifted. Deal. I left my spare pair of leather work gloves on the counter near her keys. She noticed. What are those for? Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. If you still want the platform. I already said deal. I heard you, still leaving you overnight to change your mind. The yellow hallway light spilled across the threshold when I stepped out. Amelia stayed inside, one hand on the door, the lease notice resting beside the cracked mug. When the door closed between us, the radiator hum followed me down the stairs like a warning I couldn't stop hearing. By 6 the next evening, I had borrowed a flatbed cart from the hotel job site with permission, loaded it with oak beams from a salvage yard, and picked up steel spreader plates from a fabricator who still owed me for a Saturday crane recovery in Queens. I also had a printed 2-page agreement in a folder: scope, cost, payment plan, license limitations, temporary platform language, and a line stating Amelia could stop the work at any time. She opened the door before I knocked. The loft looked different under daylight. Not better, exactly, but less defeated. The moving boxes had been pushed into rows. The rig still sat in the danger zone, untouched. Blue painter's tape marked a clear path from the door to the living room. On the kitchen counter, the cracked mug now held a pencil, a utility knife, and the work gloves I had left. Amelia wore a cream sweater buttoned high under a soft cardigan, sleeves pushed up like she'd been fighting boxes all day and winning by inches. Her hair was tied back with what looked like a cable tie. I looked at it. She followed my gaze. Don't judge. I found it in a lighting kit. I once secured a torn parka with dental floss at 12,000 feet. I said, cable tie ranks as professional. Her mouth curved. Then the floor groaned again, and the smile disappeared. I handed her the folder, read first. She took her time. I respected that. People who have been controlled by money learn to fear vague favors more than clear invoices. The radiator clicked in the wall while she read. You wrote that I can terminate the work at any point, she said. Yes. And that you only sign off on the temporary load distribution deck, not the underlying building structure. Yes, if I find cracked joists, this stops and we call an engineer. She looked up. You put that in bold. I like my ceiling and my license. And honesty. That too. She signed. Only then did I cross the room and start marking joist lines. The next 4 hours turned the loft into a workshop. The circular saw bit into oak, the drill knocked against steel, and the radiator's hum became the bass note under everything. I showed Amelia how to find joist direction by the nail pattern near the baseboard, then confirmed with a stud finder and a small inspection camera slipped through an existing cable opening. She knelt beside the platform plans, writing measurements on painter's tape before I transferred them to the timber. She was good with precision, better than good. 32 1/4, she called. Confirm from the wall, not the baseboard. She measured again. 32 1/8, the baseboard bows. That matters. In product work, everything matters. A shadow changes color. A 0.5 millimeter shift ruins a package reflection. I looked at the way she held the tape, hooked at the edge, finger flat, eyes level with the mark. Then you already understand load work. I understand clients who say, just fix it in post, when they mean perform witchcraft under deadline. That is the first accurate description of construction clients I've heard all week. Her smile came fast and vanished faster, like she had forgotten it was allowed to stay. At 8, her movements slowed. She missed a screw cup with a washer, and it bounced twice across the floor. She stared at it like the washer had personally betrayed her. I stood, went to the kitchenette, filled 2 glasses of water, and set one beside her knee. Drink. She took it without arguing. Then I opened my phone and ordered pizza from the place on the corner. Plain cheese, roasted vegetables, nothing messy near electrical gear. Amelia watched me over the rim of the glass. You didn't ask what I wanted. You look like you've spent the last 12 hours making decisions. I chose the lowest risk food. Lowest risk pizza, very romantic. I'm a man of precision. Does precision include ordering extra napkins? Obviously. The laugh she gave me that time was stronger. It loosened something in the room. When the food arrived, we sat on the floor with our backs against the unfinished oak frame, knees angled toward the platform instead of each other. The old radiator hummed under the window. Yellow streetlight cut across the steel plates and turned the sawdust gold. Amelia picked at the edge of a slice. My ex-business partner, Devin, used to say I was too careful. He wanted faster setups, bigger risks, more expensive gear. When I questioned the load specs on this rig, he told me I was being dramatic. Then he signed the shipping order anyway, used the company card for the delivery, and left me with the invoice after he walked out. I did not say what I wanted to say about Devin. My jaw did enough of that without language. She noticed, "You're very loud for a quiet person." I didn't say anything. Your face did. I'll speak to my face. She looked down at the pizza, then back at the rig. He made me feel like every concern was a weakness, like asking for proof meant I wasn't brave. I set my slice on the paper plate. Bravery without proof is how people drop loads on innocent bystanders. That should be on a motivational poster. No, it would be ugly. Too many words. A real smile stayed on her face for 3 full seconds. The next day, Marcus posted a notice on her door. Notice of pending lease violation review. Amelia found it at 7 in the morning and sent me a picture before I had finished coffee. By 7:20, I was upstairs. She had taped the notice to the kitchen cabinet beside the load plan and the invoice Devin had left behind. The radiator rattled louder than usual, or maybe the room was just quiet enough to hear it. He moved the timeline. She said, "The first notice gave me 48 hours. This says he can bring an inspector today if he believes the equipment poses immediate risk." "He can request an inspection," I said. "He can't issue a code finding himself. He knows the inspector will see the rig in the middle of the floor." "Then we don't let the inspector see only the middle of the floor." Her eyes snapped to mine. I lifted the folder. "We document current condition before he arrives. Photos of the original caster placement, measurements, material receipts, temporary platform plan, your written studio approval, my license sheet. If the inspector comes, we control the record with facts." "We? If you want me there?" She held my gaze for a beat. Then she took the tape roll off the counter and handed it to me. "I want you there, but I speak first." "Good." We spent the morning turning panic into evidence. Amelia photographed every caster mark with a ruler and frame. I measured spans, noted joist direction, calculated distributed load, and wrote the numbers cleanly enough for a board inspector to follow before lunch. She found the original email from the leasing agent approving studio equipment, lighting grid, camera movement systems, and product photography machinery suitable for non-manufacturing commercial use. The phrase was ugly, but useful. Then she found something better. "Look at this," she said. I leaned over the kitchen counter, keeping the folder between us. Her laptop showed 2 versions of a delivery sheet, one from the manufacturer, one Devin had forwarded to the leasing office. "The weight is different," she said. On the manufacturer's sheet, the base track was listed at 2,180 pounds. On Devin's version, it was 820. "That's not a typo," I said. "No," her voice had gone flat. He altered the spec before sending it to the agent. "Do you have the original file metadata?" She gave me a look. "I'm a video person. I have 5 backup drives and emotional attachment to file timestamps. I apologize for underestimating you. You should—" There it was again. The small pressure valve humor in the middle of a room full of legal threats and old timber. Not enough to erase the problem. Enough to keep the problem from owning every inch of air. She exported both PDFs and saved them into a folder labeled Marcus, Lease Review. Her hands were steady now. The inspector arrived at 3:15 with Marcus at his shoulder. The inspector was a woman named Ramirez with gray hair pulled into a tight knot and a tablet in her hand. She paused in the doorway, listened to the radiator hum, then looked at the room like she had already seen too many landlords exaggerate and too many tenants lie. Marcus spoke first. "Immediate structural hazard," he said. "Unauthorized industrial equipment, possible floor failure over an occupied residential unit." "That occupied residential unit is mine," I said. Ramirez looked at me. "Name?" "Nathan Reed, Unit 3B, Master Rigging License 8402. Marcus frowned. "He is not part of the lease." "He is directly affected if the floor fails," Ramirez said, "and I'll hear relevant technical information." Amelia stepped forward before I could. She wore no makeup that I could see, just sawdust on one sleeve and a pencil tucked behind her ear. She held the folder in both hands. "I am Amelia Bennett, tenant of 4B. The equipment was approved as part of a commercial studio setup. The point load concern is valid, and I'm correcting it with a freestanding load distribution platform. Nothing is being permanently attached to the building. Mr. Reed is here as a licensed specialist, and as the downstairs tenant affected by the risk." Ramirez took the folder. Marcus's pen stopped moving. "Good." I stood back. That mattered more than I wanted it to. My whole life had been stepping under loads because other people froze. On job sites, there was no time to ask a girder whether it wanted help. In a room like Amelia's, the rules were different. She did not need me to become louder than the men who had cornered her. She needed the proof ready when she chose to speak. Ramirez reviewed the photos, the load sketch, the approval email, the weight discrepancy, and my draft platform worksheet. "This platform isn't finished," she said. "No," Amelia replied. "We stopped work to document the current condition before inspection." Ramirez looked at me. "You're signing the load distribution worksheet?" "For the freestanding temporary deck only," I said, "not the underlying joist integrity. Based on visual inspection and camera access through the existing cable opening, I found no visible joist cracking. If the structure shows movement after transfer, work stops and a structural engineer reviews." Ramirez nodded once. Marcus shifted. "The lease says she can't operate heavy industrial machinery." Amelia opened a second tab on her laptop and turned it toward Ramirez. "This is not manufacturing equipment. It's a motion control camera rig for non-contact product videography. No stamping, pressing, cutting, or assembly. The equipment moves a camera along a track at controlled speed. I have client requirements that demand repeatable movement within a millimeter." Ramirez looked at Marcus. "That is not a steel press." His jaw tightened. "No violation issued today." Ramirez said, "I'll return Thursday morning. If the rig remains unsupported, I'll document the hazard. If the platform is completed as described and the numbers check out, the city has no code issue." Amelia released a breath through her nose, not quite relief, but enough to keep standing. Marcus leaned toward her. "The lease review is still open." Amelia closed the folder. "Then I'll bring you the compliance packet Thursday." He looked annoyed that she hadn't asked permission to survive. After they left, the loft seemed to exhale. The radiator hummed. A bus hissed at the curb 4 floors below. Amelia stood in the yellow spill of hallway light, folder against her chest, eyes fixed on the door. "You did that," I said. "We did the packet." "You spoke." She looked back at me. "You stayed quiet." Nearly killed me. I could tell. "My face again?" "Your entire spine." I bent to pick up the drill. "My spine will receive coaching." For 2 days, we worked. Not in a soft montage, not in an effortless blur. Real work is ugly. It leaves splinters in your palm, dust in your hair, and one screw that refuses to sit flush until you take a breath and stop blaming the screw for your bad angle. Amelia learned quickly. She marked each joist with chalk, measured twice without being told, and caught one mismatch in my steel plate spacing before I did. "Plate 3 is off by ½ an inch," she said. I checked. She was right. I stared at the mark. She leaned against the workbench, waiting. "I enjoy being corrected," I said eventually. "No, you don't." "No, I don't." But good catch." She smiled and went back to labeling the plate positions in clean block letters. That became the rhythm. Radiator hum. Yellow hallway light when the door opened for deliveries. Drill, measure, brace, check. Pizza boxes on the counter, water glasses appearing before either of us asked. Amelia's cracked mug filling with pencils, then screws, then folded receipts. My gloves on her counter, hers beside mine by the door. On the second night, the building lost heat for 40 minutes. The radiator went silent. Amelia froze mid-measure. "What?" I asked. She looked embarrassed before she looked frightened. "Nothing." "Amelia." She set the pencil down. When the partnership collapsed, silence meant I had missed something. Devin would go quiet before telling me he'd signed something, spent something, promised something I had to clean up. The radiator is annoying, but at least it tells me the building is still working. I put the drill down. The old part of me wanted to fix that sentence, patch it, clamp it, lift the load away before she had to feel it. Instead, I walked to the thermostat, checked the building panel, and texted the super's emergency line. Then I came back with the cracked mug and set it beside her. "Temporary boiler reset." I said, "I messaged the super, should come back soon." She looked at the mug. "You used my lens brush cup for tea. You used a cable tie as a hair clip. We're all adapting." The smile this time was small but not accidental. When the radiator kicked back on, she picked up the pencil and drew the straightest chalk line of the night. By Thursday morning, the platform was complete. 3/4-inch steel plates sat under an oak grid. The load spread across 4 primary joists and 2 secondary bearing paths. Rubber isolation pads sat beneath the track base to reduce vibration. The motion control rig stood on the platform like it had belonged there from the beginning. The floor stayed silent. I hated that silence for 1 second. Then I realized it was the right kind. Ramirez returned at 9. Marcus returned with her, carrying a folder thicker than before, and wearing the expression of a man who had prepared 3 alternate ways to ruin someone's morning. Amelia met them at the door. "Good morning," she said. "Please come in. Stay on the taped path until I walk you through the load plan." Marcus looked at me behind her. I did not move. Ramirez stepped inside and examined the platform. She checked the material receipts, the steel plate thickness, the oak grade stamp, my worksheet, the photos, and the final weight transfer notes. She placed a small laser level near the platform edge and watched the line. The red beam stayed still. "Run the rig," she said. Amelia turned to me. I stepped back. "Your equipment." She looked at the control panel, then at the client sample boxes arranged on the table. Her thumb moved toward her index finger, stopped, and curled instead around the jog wheel. The rig started with a low, smooth mechanical slide. The camera mount moved along the track. No floor groan, no shutter, no dip. The radiator hummed beneath it, old and stubborn and steady. Ramirez watched the full pass again. Amelia ran it again. Marcus's face changed. It was subtle. The smile dropped first, then the clipboard lowered. Ramirez typed on her tablet, "No code violation. Freestanding temporary load distribution deck appears compliant for the stated use. No visible deflection during equipment operation. No stop work order issued." Marcus opened his folder. Lease Section 4 still allows management discretion for nuisance equipment. Amelia picked up the original lease approval email and the altered equipment sheet. Then we should discuss why management received a falsified weight sheet from my former partner and chose to threaten termination before reviewing the original approval. I've prepared copies for the owner, the tenant board, and my attorney. Marcus went still. Her voice did not shake. "The platform is compliant," she continued. "The equipment is approved. The city has no violation. You will close the lease review in writing today. And if another notice appears on my door without a documented code basis, I will file a harassment complaint with the owner and attach the full packet." Ramirez's eyes flicked toward Marcus. I kept my hands behind my back because if I moved even half an inch, I would ruin the best part of the morning, Amelia holding the load herself because the structure finally supported her. Marcus swallowed. "I'll review with ownership." "Today," Amelia said. The single word landed harder than any threat I could have made. He looked at Ramirez, then at me, then back at Amelia. "Fine. Thank you," Amelia said, with enough politeness to make it worse. After they left, she stood in the open doorway for a long moment. Yellow hallway light fell across the floor. The radiator hummed. The motion control rig rested silently on its oak and steel base. She looked down at the compliance worksheet in her hand. The page did not shake. "I need to hand this to Marcus myself," she said. "I know. Will you come as a witness?" "If you want me there." "I do." We walked down to the management office together. Marcus sat behind his desk, pretending to read an email. Amelia placed the compliance packet in front of him, along with the altered weight sheet, the original approval, Ramirez's no violation note, and a written demand for lease review closure. "This is for the record," she said. Marcus looked at me. "Is he speaking for you?" "No," Amelia said. "He is witnessing me speak for myself." I almost smiled. Almost. Marcus signed the closure acknowledgement with a pen that seemed to offend him personally. Outside the office, Amelia stopped beneath the same yellow hallway light where I had first stood with a box in my hands. Down the corridor, the radiator knocked once, then resumed its steady hum. She held the signed closure paper like it was both lighter and heavier than expected. "You helped me move into this apartment," she said. I carried one box, and then balanced the tension under the rest of it. That was mostly oak and steel. "Nathan." I looked at her. She held my gaze, her eyes bright but steady. "Stay long enough to see it hold." I had a crane shift on the east side in 40 minutes. I had work boots covered in sawdust, a truck double parked behind the building, and a lifetime habit of leaving before anyone could ask for more than I knew how to give. The old radiator hummed through the wall. "I have 20 minutes, I said. Her smile arrived slowly. "I can work with 20 minutes. We went back upstairs and sat on the edge of the platform, not touching, looking at the rig like it was a small bridge we had built out of math and stubbornness. Amelia opened the cracked mug and poured the screws onto a towel so she could use it for coffee. I made a note to buy her an actual pencil cup and then decided not to. The mug had survived the move. It had earned its job. "You're staring at the mug," she said. "It's structurally questionable. It's emotionally load-bearing. I can't sign off on that." "No license for mugs?" "Not in this jurisdiction." She laughed, and this time the room held it. The 6 weeks that followed were not simple. Marcus did close the lease review, but he did not become kind. Devin sent 2 emails pretending concern and asking whether our equipment was safe now. Amelia replied once with her attorney copied, and never again. The packaging client moved the first shoot date up by 4 days, because clients are nature's way of reminding freelancers that victory is only the right to solve the next problem. I did not move in. I did not take over her schedule. I did not become the man who always had a tool in his hand before she decided whether she wanted something fixed. I did come upstairs when she asked for help leveling the track. I did bring my socket wrench the next day for the crooked lighting bracket I had noticed and said nothing about until she pointed to it herself. I did teach her how to read the platform's load labels, and she taught me why a white package under warm light can turn green on camera if the reflection angle is wrong. One night, near midnight, I came home from a crane shift and heard the radiator humming through the old wall of 3B. Above me, the motion control rig moved in soft, precise passes, not too loud, not dangerous, just the sound of Amelia's business breathing. I stood in my kitchen with a glass of water in my hand and listened until the pass ended. A person can get used to carrying weight alone. You tell yourself it is safer, cleaner, more efficient. No one drops their end if no one else is holding it. Then, someone measures beside you without grabbing the tape. Someone spots the plate that is off by ½ an inch. Someone speaks in the management office with her own voice, and all your careful distance starts to feel less like discipline and more like fear wearing a hard hat. At the end of the 6th week, Amelia's first full client shoot ran in the loft. I arrived late in the afternoon with 2 coffees and a bag of extra napkins I would deny buying if asked. The hallway was warm. The yellow light over 4B buzzed faintly. Inside, the studio had transformed. C-stands stood in clean rows. Product boxes lined the table by color family. The vintage rig moved smoothly over the platform, camera sliding along its track with a whisper of motor noise. The floor stayed silent. A client in a navy blazer watched the monitor. That pass is perfect. Amelia stood beside the rig with a tablet in one hand and a pencil tucked behind her ear. She looked tired, but not hollow, focused, not cornered. When the client asked a question about reflection angles, she answered before he finished asking. I stopped just inside the door. The old radiator hummed under the window. Amelia saw me and smiled like I belonged to the room without needing to own any of it. 1 minute, she told the client. She walked over, but she did not take the coffee right away. Instead, she turned back toward the client, the crew, and the quiet machine standing on the platform we had built. This is Nathan, she said clearly. My partner. The client glanced at me. Business partner? Amelia looked at me over the rim of the coffee I handed her. No, she said, the better kind. I should have had a clever answer. I had nothing. My hands were empty except for cardboard cups and the old, unreasonable urge to check every load before trusting it. Amelia took one coffee, then pressed the second gently back into my hand. Stay, she said. The final pass is the hardest one. I looked at the platform, the oak, the steel, the signed load labels, the small pencil marks Amelia had refused to sand off because she said they reminded her where the floor learned to hold. Then I looked at her. You balanced this, I said. We did. No, I said, softer. I gave you tools. You chose where the weight belonged. The radiator hummed. The yellow hallway light cut a warm rectangle across the threshold. The rig began its final pass, smooth and quiet, carrying the camera over the product line without a tremor. Amelia stood beside me with her shoulder near mine, close enough to be chosen, far enough that the work still had space between us. For once, I did not feel like I was carrying the room. For once, the room held the end.